Welcome to the broadcast, my dear old fruits. Is there anybody from Shrewsbury in the house? If there is, let me know. Did you see the Queen this morning? Because a crowd of 2,000 people rocked up to greet Queen Camilla as she was in Shrewsbury for the day, and it looks like a lovely place. I've never been there. I'd love to go. There's a gorgeous farmers market, and the Queen told the crowd that she knows Catherine is thrilled by all the kind wishes and support. And the crowd were very supportive towards the Queen. I've got to say, all generations were beaming with smiles and lots of good wishes galore. And Camilla received artwork of the romantic couple, which was very sweet. And she was wearing bee brooches, one belonging to her and one that used to belong to the late Queen. Aren't they gorgeous together? Gorgeous busy bee brooches. Lovely. And she was garlanded with various blooms that was strewn all over her from the crowd. Blooms and stems. There was a red rose and various blooms. She wore a brown leopard print blouse by Fiona Clare and a camel coat by Anna Valentine. And she was fed scrumptious delights, or at least got to cast her eye over some of those delicious baked goods and wares and homemade treats. So thank you very much to the people of Shrewsbury for giving our dear Queen Camilla a very warm welcome indeed. I thought it looked like an absolutely lovely day. She also spent time at the Maltings, where she met volunteer groups including a food hub, and she unveiled a commemoration plaque. You know, whenever these places come up in our royal stories, I will sometimes take to Street View and have a look around the towns and the market villages and places, this sort of thing that I haven't been to before in the kingdom. There's so many of them. They're so gorgeous. I spend quite a lot of time being nosy on Street View and going to these places that I don't know much about. It's really nice. And I wish I had all the time in the world. Sometimes I go into quite a panic because I do love this kingdom so much, even though it's deteriorating and changing so rapidly. It's still such a fabulous place with so many beauties and hidden gems, and I just want to see them all before the character changes irreplaceably. Do you understand? In this lifetime, and I don't know how long I'll be here, if I'll live a long life or not, but I would love to see every corner, every gorgeous corner of delights. So if there's any handsome man out there that wishes to drive me around as my driving companion, we can pretend we're in Driving Miss Daisy, for example, and you can chauffeur me around the kingdom. I'd be up for that, particularly if you're rather handsome. But as long as you're a good driver and don't smell and can stop off all over the place at museums, National Trust places, and scoff our faces in all the gorgeous cafes and tea houses and restaurants along the way, and hotels, wonderful, beautiful hotels and B&Bs, then hit me up. We'll see what we can do about it. Anne Jones asks, "Hi River, has Meghan been in touch to ask if you have a vacancy in your decorum college?" You could certainly teach her how to dress appropriately, speak appropriately, and behave with dignity. I'm not always dignified, I must confess to you, my dear. That's just between you and I. Don't tell anybody. I'm not always the epitome of dignity. But I know when. This is the thing. I know when. How to and when to behave with dignity. I don't know about you, but I don't usually wear a ball gown while cooking. Speak for yourself, lovey. Speak for yourself, lover girl. Why not? I hear what you're saying. I wear something a little more fitted, perhaps with a beaded bodice with loops for my pinny. Well, yeah, it's not especially practical, is it, to waltz around the kitchen in a ball gown fantasy, although there's something rather fabulous to be said about it, but I suppose she is indulging the feeling of creativity that she wants to capture. As the poor duchess in her tower, the rightful princess, has been kept from her role by ailing Katie, and all she can do is swirl around the towers of her Montecito mansion in black tweeds, mourning the role that the world wants for her. They want the rightful queen, Queen Meghan, the first, the only, and the very best. She thinks the world's waiting for Queen Meghan, and I'm afraid to say that she is not even fit to progress as a drag queen as a drag queen. There's nothing even exciting about the gal that has any gay appeal for the drags and the trans and all sorts of mixtures. But on that subject of Meghan Merchant, the merchantress, we hear tell that she will also be involved in PetFood. In PetFood. Yes, this influencer, this marketeer, this saleswoman tells us a whole host of additional products have been listed, a range of items sent to the US Patent and Trademark Office, birdseed, pet treats, pet food, woof woof. That's along with bath soaps, curtains, yoga blankets, napkin rings. Maybe Harry has got uses for the old napkin ring, should we call it? For that prince that likes to todge it in as if he's cock of the walk. Cock of the walk. Can you pass us a napkin ring, my love? Why, Harry, we have already eaten. Well, I require the device for something else, so that I am primed for the occasion, so that I am firm enough a man for you, my darling Raquel. Oh, Harry, not again. Pass me what's in the top drawer instead. The Vaseline? No, Harry, not the Vaseline. My little friend, my little buzzing friend, that I bet Gwynnie has been selling on her website. Maybe I should begin selling something that buzzes for ladies when their prince lets them down. Maybe I should take a leaf out of her book, just like I'm thinking about merchandising a candle that smells like Gwynnie's, except it'll be my own odor. Oh, well, I love the way that my wife smells. I just love it. It's intoxicating. Well, that's what I thought. So we will be selling candles called the Duchess. Oh, de Meghan. It'll sell like hotcakes. Oh, the mind boggles, doesn't it, my dear? I really don't know how you forced me to go there. Ketchup is another thing. Incense burners. I told you they'd be selling bongs, didn't I? On QVC, the Raglan Girls. Well, there's a start. Incense burners, flower pots, recipe books, and makeup and body oils. Oh, fun. I don't want your cooking credentials. I don't want your vagina candle. I don't want your napkin ring, Harry. And talking of Gwyneth, by the way, our dear Gwyneth Paltrow, she apparently, if I am so vulgar as to allude to teams, is Team Kate, evidently, because she, according to what I've read, was on her social media after Catherine posted her message, calling Catherine a pillar of grace and strength, sending love with a heart emoji. Now, I bet that stuck in the craw, didn't it? Stuck in the craw of a certain Montecito admirer and a fan of the Gwynnie empire from afar. I'm sure that stuck right there as well. Stuck in the throat. Stuck in the craw, stuck in the throat, and stuck in the heart. And as for Harry, you might be interested to know, especially if you're a taxpayer here in the kingdom, that Harry's failed legal bid to overturn the Home Office's decision to deny him the right to automatic police protection cost us, the UK taxpayer, over £500,000, £514,128 to be precise. And this was exposed by a Freedom of Information request. The government's cost of fighting the 2 judicial review claims that were lodged by Harry resulted in £180,000 spent on their counsel, £320,000 for the government's legal department, then £2,000 or £3,000 in court fees and £10,000 in electronic disclosures. And it all failed for Harry, of course, and he plans to appeal the ruling, and so the costs are likely to rise that the government are shelling out. Over $500,000 of our money as taxpayers going on this pugnacious, spoiled, privileged prince of pants. However, I will be defending Harry on the subject of P-Diddy and the headlines that have emanated over the past few days. Then this is real mischief making. This is the papers at their worst, because they come up with some great stuff. Even some of our tabloids, they do come up with some great investigative stuff at some points, even if it is showcased with some vulgarity and sensationalism, of course. But this, I'm afraid, is the fuzziest end of the lollipop, where all these headlines have come up. They're using Harry, blatantly using Harry, as Harry has used others, by the way. So that's where I'm afraid he gets his karma. But they are using Prince Harry to sell their newspapers and to sell this story about P-Diddy, because both Harry and William have brushed shoulders with P-Diddy, and they did so after a concert revolving around Diana and her charities, I believe. One of those things. So the photographs you see of Harry and William, I believe, were only on this one occasion. It was a one-off affair, and the lawyer for Rodney Jones, who is alleging unwanted advances from P-Diddy, the mind boggles, doesn't it? And to be clear, I'm not alleging it. Rodney Jones is making these allegations against P-Diddy for unwanted advances, and there's much sordid undercurrents alleged and going on. But Rodney Jones's lawyer has used Prince Harry's name to illustrate the types of public figures that P-Diddy has access to and has had access to over his career. Now, this goes back a very long time. Wasn't it to 2000 or something when he actually brushed shoulders with Harry? So it's a real stretch on behalf of this lawyer. But just that very small mention has plastered Harry all over the front pages, along with William, actually, because the papers know that it will sell copy. And I received a few comments coming in asking what I thought about it, and isn't Harry in trouble for being part of this alleged sex ring and all this, that and the third? No, he's not in trouble. The boy didn't do anything wrong. No wrongdoing suggested or carried out, I'm quite sure, but there is no doubt that the pictures do illustrate quite plainly Harry's lack of discernment. And I'm not saying that this is a great big deal, because hindsight is 2020, but when you look back you can see that William, although he is enjoying himself, he has the restraint of somebody that bears the responsibility of a future king. Do you see? He has a certain restraint, whereas Harry is gooning and clowning around with gay abandon. But let's not fault when there is none, when there is nothing at fault and nobody at fault here. And in this circumstance, as far as I can see from where I'm standing, there's none. Queen Camilla also hosted a reception at Clarence House with authors, neuroscientists and members of the literary community to mark the findings of a pioneering new research study commissioned by the Queen's Reading Room. And the research examines the connection between reading and well-being. The results have proven that there is an important link between reading fiction and increased mental health, brain health and social connectedness. And I saw a Bonham Carter, I saw a Patsy, I saw some kisses, I saw lots of lovies, and a really rather splendid evening. Anne Martin says, if you are ever up in Northumberland River, I thoroughly recommend Barter Books in Alnwick. Alnwick is spelt A-L-N-W-I-C-K, in case you go Googling it, but the L and the W are silent, so it's Alnwick. A book lover's idea of heaven. I love your description of your trinkets. I think you would make a fantastic auctioneer. Thank you, Anne, my dear, thank you for that. I watch quite a few auctioneers, actually, both in person, but also even more frequently online. If any of you look at the auction houses online, they are live streamed, and you get to pick your favourites, and you can tell who's good and who's not, and who's slow and who's fast and who's to this and to that. A few eccentrics in there as well. They are rather fun. I wouldn't mind a go at it here and there, hammering the gavel or whatever it is they use. But thank you, Anne Martin, for introducing me to yet another place that I really would love to go. And I was snooping around on Street View again to look at Alnwick, the market town of Alnwick in Northumberland. Rarely have cause to be in that neck of the woods, don't know when I will next time, but I want to get there one day to see this wonderful place that you told me about, Barter Books. Alnwick Castle is also in Alnwick. Now, I do know about Alnwick Castle. It's the home of the Duke of Northumberland. And very grand it is too. But Barter Books I hadn't heard of. It's a second-hand bookshop. Been going since 1887, and it's built in the Victorian Alnwick railway station there. So it's absolutely beautiful, heavenly. It's one of the largest bookshops, or at least second-hand bookshops, in Europe. And there is a barter system there where you can exchange books for credit, I believe. And some trivia is that in 2000, the owner discovered a poster from 1939 around the wartime era, World War II. Keep calm and carry on. Found the original copy of the poster. And he framed it and he hung it by the tills, by the cash registers at Barter Books. And that's where interest picked up. And it was produced and manufactured, and people started selling copies of it, and it's become inescapably ubiquitous, hasn't it? So much so that I thought that it had held fame for decades and decades and decades. Well, I hear tell that it only really came to public consciousness in that way after it was discovered by this owner in 2000. We've all seen it, haven't we? I've got a coffee cup somewhere that a friend gave me, not with keep calm and carry on, but I think it was drink coffee and carry on or something like that. They'd used the phrase to promote coffee, but yes, that's where it all comes from. And there's a cafe there. There are little coves for reading, which look gorgeous, fireplaces, nooks and crannies, cooks and grannies, a model railway, charming videos you can find of it too on YouTube. If you look on YouTube, you'll find it, Barter Books, and you can lose yourself in the glory of it. Another place that just puts me in a panic. I need to see everything here. Everything here. I either need a chauffeur, a handsome male chauffeur, please, to drive me around. Please, send your offers in. Send your offers in. This is what I need. Someone that can chauffeur me around, see all these places, see the kingdom, eat a lot of food, and see what I cherish so much about this kingdom before all of it vanishes. I feel very blessed, even though these are murky times and lots of things that I love have disappeared or are disappearing. But I feel very blessed that at least I have straddled the end of the old world into the new world. And while doing that, there is still so much of the old world left to look at and enjoy. And you know, I want to be more optimistic about that fact, that there is still so much of it here in this country for me to enjoy, and I'm going to enjoy it, by Jove. I'm going to enjoy it before my time is up. Because another thing that is vanishing at a rapid rate, I think at a rate of 29 per week, are our English pubs, our public houses, which throughout my lifetime and way before have just been scattered through every street here, every street corner, and they lend such character and such social opportunities for generations, for families. Well, they've been dying out, haven't they, my dears? And the smoking ban didn't help with regards to that. So congratulations if you got your smoke-free world that you wanted, and your world where no mix of generations happens anymore, and all you get in pubs now is posh food in gastro pubs, which I also enjoy very much. But something is really being lost, because all of these public houses are being turned into DIY stores, takeaway houses, and mosques. This is the other thing, they're becoming mosques. How very depressing. Where there once were parish churches all over the place, now they're all shutting down and becoming luxury flats. And the pubs, the drinking dens where everybody got together and had a right old fabulous time and a sing-song and a knees up and escape from the world. Well, now everybody's staying at home on their computers, playing games, and mosques are springing up where the pub once was. And everybody else is staying in, not going clubbing, nightlife shut down, Soho's shut down, shops are shutting early, clubs, restaurants are all closing early. You can't apparently go out anymore and stay out late, have a late night drink anywhere because of the cost of living crisis. People can't afford to stay open. What a joyless, hideous old world it's turning into. How can a corner be turned now? His Majesty the King was joined by community and faith leaders who are alumni of the Windsor Leadership Trust at Buckingham Palace, and the King heard about their involvement in the Faith Leaders Forum, where they shared experiences of leading communities at a time of heightened international tensions. The palace also confirmed that the King will lead members of the royal family at the traditional Easter Matin service at St George's, accompanied by the Queen. But as I previously mentioned, none of the Wales family will be able to attend it now. A comment now from a channel by the name of Extraordinary Women with Shari Harmel. I'll flash up an image of it. Shari Harmel of Extraordinary Women magazine has a website and has a channel and appears to be a viewer of this channel, so I would encourage you to take a look at Shari's channel, see what she's up to. Let's see if we can bump up her subscribership, shall we? She's in the 300s and it looks rather fun and she looks rather gorgeous, I've got to say. Shari Harmel. Actually, I chanced upon one of her videos when I was looking to see what the channel's about. It was called Bored in Paris, What's Wrong With Me? And she explains that even in the beautiful surroundings of Paris, one can be bored, and it is so true. The times that I have been in Paris alone, bored out of my brain, and you sit there feeling quite guilty because you're among such beauty and such refinement, such culture, such people, such food, and you sit there bored boobless, don't you, my dear? Thinking, what am I going to do? I've done the whole thing of, trotting around with a baguette poking out of my bag, little bookshops, flirting with all the messieurs here, there and everywhere, and having a little coffee on my own. It's wonderful for 20 minutes, and then you begin getting lost, and everybody begins ignoring you as they do in Paris. Hello, River. Your show is wonderful. Thank you, my dear. And you often make me laugh, which is a gift. I thank you for that. That's one of my favourite things to do. If you leave with a chuckle, my job is done. You often talk about charity shops for all your tip jar corner purchases. I'm in the States but often travel to London. Can you be clear how to identify a charity shop? Are they actually what we in the States call consignment shops? Whether you have any favourites or if these shops are scattered throughout London. On my next visit, I'm planning to put several on my agenda. Thank you in advance for any and all suggestions. Well, I'm afraid it's going to be a rather frustrating answer, and I'm replying to you because I get asked this a lot when I mention charity shops. They are a version of what you would call in the States Goodwill or thrifting. Basically, these are second-hand stores, and they are all separately and individually attached to charities so that they fundraise. People donate the items and they fundraise for specific charities for every shop. They're on just about every high street in the kingdom, so there are thousands of them. Some of the main ones, big names you might see, are Cancer Research, British Heart Foundation, Age UK, Mind, Oxfam is a big one going on, Save the Children, Salvation Army, Crisis, this kind of thing. And I believe they became popular after the wars, in response to the wars, when people would donate items, and they were attached to the Red Cross, which was the Duke of Gloucester's Red Cross, and the St John Fund, revolving around St John ambulances that we've recently seen. The Princess Royal's involvement just in recent weeks, haven't we? But I'm sad to disappoint you. There is no rhyme or reason. There is no particular shop that I can suggest, because I can go to the same shop 4 times in the same month and have a completely different experience. There might be 3 trips where there's nothing there of any joy. It's a barren desert, and then I'll pop in another time and there's been a whole bounty of wonderful items dropped off. Although I've said it recently, I will say it again, I'm picking up a 6th sense. I go to them so often, every week, several times, and Of course, I've got some favourites local to me, but yes, they are scattered all over London and all about some. Also, when I'm in other cities and towns, I always pop in to the charity shops there to see what can be found. So it depends on the district. It depends what they charge, because some of the more salubrious areas got wise to it, and you can't find a bargain anymore. The prices are sky high. They aren't the treasure troves full of wonderful bargains that once existed, but I have developed a sixth sense in the doing of it. I can almost smell it before I wander in. I just know whether or not there is going to be a great haul to be found, and once that happens, then I do tend to find that the whole day is filled with good finds as well, and equally there can be rotten days when there's nothing at all to dig out. So I'm sorry I can't be of more help there, my dear, but if you want to be more assured that you will find some good treasures, then I would suggest looking up local vintage fairs, specialist fairs, antique fairs, this sort of thing, and many of them can be found on Google. A rather more serious subject now of immigration, which I turn to occasionally, and I'll try to whiz through it so that we don't dwell on it too long and linger on too much seriousness. A comment from C.S.E.E. Wolfin, W-O-E-L-F-I-N, C. Wolfin or Wolfin. Britain has not been ruined by immigration. It has been ruined by plunging the working classes into poverty, with the divide between rich and poor increasing dramatically. And don't conflate refugees, often from areas where Britain and the US have been involved in regime change, with economic migrants. There is definitely room for introspection. Well, I'm presuming that you're addressing me here, my dear, and I must say that I have never conflated anything of the such, so I'm not quite sure why you are sounding quite so perturbed, because I've already made the distinctions that you have done recently and previously in great detail, so there's no conflating type of migrant here. I've always made the distinction between the genuine healthy flow of the type of immigration that should be encouraged and the swarming masses we find ourselves with flooding over now. And I've also made the point that there is compassion to be had for nations that have been destabilized by Western influence, without a doubt. I was pointing the finger at the untrammeled multitudes, untrammeled, both legally and illegally, entering such a small island that doesn't have the capacity. And these type of migrants get lost in our system and out of our system. They are untraceable. And also many of them are hostile. Most, in fact, hostile to our existing and traditional culture and values and religion, and they are of poor quality. Many of them don't speak our language. Our language is our common bond. It is what is important, and ghettos are formed. They're forming up and down the country all the time. Everybody is becoming more insular, and a sort of self-imposed apartheid is becoming apparent in some of our largest cities and towns. There's no common ground. And more importantly than having no common ground, there's no desire for common ground on their behalf. There's also increasing anti-Semitism that is plainly displayed upon our streets now in a way that was unthinkable just a few months ago. You say the working classes have been plunged into poverty, and that's what's really ruining Britain. Well, if that's true of recent years, don't tell me that it wasn't also true a century ago, my dear. Because my understanding is that there was a gap in equality that narrowed after the war. It narrowed after the war, and then it rose again during the 80s, and it peaked in the 90s. And then inequality fell again round about 2010 and has stayed relatively level since. Poverty is indeed a stain and a great shame upon this nation and upon any nation that is considered wealthy. But it is not the cause, in my opinion, and I accept that you have a different opinion, my dear, but in my opinion, it is not the cause of Britain's ruin, because you can ask the working classes that you mentioned that were plunged into poverty of 1924, of 100 years ago. Ask them, because they were plunged into poverty, as you say, and there was a great big gap between the rich and the poor. But they were the backbone. They were the backbone of this nation, the working classes. So I don't believe that the nation's ruin is down to that undesirable inequality that you mentioned, whether that's true or not. A nation's ruin is down to no longer being a nation and feeling like a nation. A nation involves an act of imagination to bind people together. Do you understand? Everything is imagination, including a nation. And our nation, our collective imagination, is diluted. It is diversified beyond recognition. It's rudderless and it's spiritually weak. We are at the mercy of other nations now, such as China, for trade. We are on our knees for mercy to them. We are beholden to them. We have exported our industry and to hostile nations, and we have imported ideologies from other nations. It's total chaos. And as I've said, I still adore this country. I still have love for its tradition. But this is the first time over the last year or two that I've wondered to myself, depending on how long I live, if I will die here or if I will leave at some point in the future, if I live a long life. There's every possibility that I might consider leaving. Certainly not any time soon. It's still, I think, such a fantastic place, a brilliant place. But for how long and how rapidly it's changing, doesn't bear thinking about. Although, having said that, one will be hard-pressed, I expect, to find anywhere else in the West that can offer anything better anyway, because most of the Western nations are going through similar gigs and similar challenges. And I hate to drag the Church of England into the sphere of my criticism, because there's so much that I love about the Church of England as well, and there are so many wonderful people involved. Even, I'm sure, some of the ones that I'm about to disparage are so well-intentioned and well-meaning and bring so much to their occupation, their vocation. But the Church of England are alienating their most ardent supporters in an effort to shake things up and keep things modern and woke and inclusive and diverse. I'm afraid they're alienating so much of their traditional base. Maybe that's what they want to do, but I don't see them replenishing it in a very healthy way. The Diocese of York, for example, placed a job advertisement recently I was reading for a racial justice enabler. I hear you groan, I hear you cry. A racial justice enabler. Who are going to be on a salary, by the way, double that of a vicar's. I think 32,000 the salary is, plus benefits. And they are being asked for their lived experience, one of Prince William's favourite phrases. He's picked up on that. Oh, your lived experience this, your lived experience that. And the target for mid-2025 is for the enabler to plan, curate and roll out an appropriate unconscious bias and diversity training programme. Oh! Hasn't everyone in the kingdom been dragged through this training already? Do they need to undergo it for every single job they arrive at these days? Unconscious bias, going to be hammered into everybody, isn't it? My bias ain't unconscious, lovey. My bias ain't unconscious. I'm very proud of my bias and my biases. It was one out of my lived experience, honey girl and honey boy. It was one out of my lived experience. If I hold biases, then they are valid. Sugar tits. Valid. And the fourth mark of the mission apparently is transforming unjust structures. White structures, whisper it. Using the white programme to work with senior leaders to address issues of white fragility. Ooh. So basically another navel-gazing exercise in guilt and the salty, guilty white tears. And please don't confuse my disdain for any type of fragility. Black, white or red all over, or pink stripes with yellow spots. Honey bun. And the Archdeacon of Liverpool, Miranda Threlfall-Holmes, is quoted as saying, "I went to a conference on whiteness last autumn. It was very, very good, very interesting, and made me realise whiteness is to race as patriarchy is to gender. So yes, let's have anti-whiteness and let's smash the patriarchy. Ooh, yippee-doo!" That's not anti-white, she says. It's not anti-white or anti-men, it's just anti-oppression. Oh, pass me the anti-Jemima. It's humiliating. Humiliating is what it is. And I'll tell you an extreme example that's also been in the news this week. And I do realise on the subject of immigration, I'm using an extreme example here, but it's not incredibly unusual. And you hear more and more examples of this. And this is the case of Abdul Azidi. And this was a horrific case that hit the headlines recently. Abdul Azidi, an Afghan national, a convicted sex offender. He recently attacked a woman just a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it, my dears? It was all over the press. I think it was a woman that he knew in some format, but he travelled a long way to douse her and her 2 daughters in a corrosive chemical substance, and they were horrifically burned by it. In the doing of it, he burned himself, and there are photographs or CCTV footage of him with a very damaged eye. He managed to hurt himself, poor ting, and I think he damaged himself so badly that he wound up drowning in the Thames. No one's sure how he got in there, but on the same day that he attacked these, he either killed himself deliberately or was trying to soothe his eye from its pains, and for one reason or other he drowned. Anyway, sources from the Home Office are saying that the churches here are undermining the integrity of the asylum system. And as an aside, the Home Office itself aren't really wants to talk because they've been infested by woke culture and have got loads of ultra lefty wingers under their tutelage and instruction, as it is from what I hear tell. But this Abdul Azidi was granted asylum eventually after he was refused it twice by the Home Office. He came here illegally in 2016. Then he was granted asylum on the 3rd appeal by immigration tribunal judges after he claimed that he had converted to Christianity and would be prosecuted if he returned to Afghanistan. And then to add insult to injury, after everyone believed that he had suddenly had this miraculous conversion to Christianity, well, this week he was given a Muslim burial. And a whistleblower priest came forward recently, accusing the Church of England of becoming complicit in a conveyor belt of asylum seeker baptisms that are being used by migrants to remain in the UK, which is another example of them laughing at us, as if all these people arriving with other religions are all of a sudden going to be illumined by Jesus Christ and adopt a new religion. As if. It's humiliating. Do you see what I mean? In fairness, the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, has denied this and says that he has seen no evidence of this, only assertions. So I'll take that into the mix. But I do see continual messaging from the Church of England which weakens the spirit of congregations, the waning congregations. And this is at a time when they should be shoring it up. The Church of England must have the money. If it has the money for all these diversification officers and racial justice officers and examining and navel-gazing, they must have the money to be able to want to shore up Christianity in this traditional Christian kingdom and the congregations there. And I'm not sure that they're going the right way about it. And while we're on the subject, I would like to have another grumble about Cadbury's chocolate. Cadbury's chocolate for Holy Week when we are all in the spirit of Easter eggs, apparently they have been rebranded. You have the option of gesture eggs. Gesture eggs in some of Cadbury's outlets, particularly in Spalding, Lincolnshire, and a few others. That's what you get with your diversity training, isn't it? Oh, do you really think we should call them just Easter eggs? There are people from other religions that might want one. Other religions that might want an Easter egg. It's there to symbolise resurrection, my dear, the resurrection of Christ. So if it offends them, they should be sniffing around Easter eggs to begin with, should they, my dear? I mean, the preposterousness of it. The preposterousness to call them gesture eggs. This is where your diversification training gets you. This is why some of us have a bit of a problem with it. And can you imagine it in reverse? Can you imagine if it was any other religion in the kingdom, and somebody strolled along and started giving them twee little names that appeal to any religion and anybody else? Can you imagine? They would be sued, it would be attacked, and called out for blasphemy and sent off to be chucked off buildings, most likely. And these are the kind of laws that will probably infiltrate our systems. And I might sound like I'm being glib and over the top, but as the minorities become the majorities, don't call the bets off. The lovely Birgitta Gloucester visited the Dental Institute-based King's College Hospital in her role as Colonel-in-Chief of the Royal Army Dental Corps. Her Royal Highness toured the Rainbow Suite, which provides a dental trauma service to children, as well as dental and facial trauma treatment to adults. She unveiled a plaque marking the centenary of the dental hospital and school, which opened in 1927, and she was classic and timeless in blue. Now that is a duchess, and that is royalty. Do you see the difference, my dear? Royalty. Stay fruity and always on royal duty. Leave me a lovely comment, and my tip jar, if you enjoyed the broadcast, is in the description box. Ta-ra, my dears. Channel the royal spirit, and toodle pip.